4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS, the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We got an action-packed show for you today. Joining us in studio this hour, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, formerly of the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? He's a free agent wide receiver, caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He'll be joining us in studio later in this hour. Then coming up at 4:40 p.m. Eastern time today, 1:40 p.m. Pacific, we'll do a little college football fix. Former Ohio State quarterback, now at Syracuse, Kyle McCord, will stop by. And then the final hour of the show, UConn Huskies fans, you don't want to miss this. At 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, star player for the UConn Huskies as they get set for the Final Four in Phoenix, Arizona. In the men's tournament, looking to win back-to-back national championships. Donovan Clingan will join us. So a whole lot to do today. I got Samter and Stu rocking and rolling with me. But I got to start with the sensational night that was in the Elite Eight last evening for women's basketball. And the reason why I say it's a sensational night, it's not just isolated to one game. Because I was curious with how much hype there was with the LSU-Iowa game as Caitlin Clark got her revenge, if I would then stick around afterwards for another extremely hyped matchup, an extremely intriguing matchup between Juju Watkins of USC, and then you also did have Paige Buckers, Paige Buckets, as she is called, who used to be like Caitlin Clark before the injury, and she's still so damn phenomenal going up against UConn. And I'm not going to lie, I was actually more entertained in a bizarre way by the second game than the first game. And the reason why I say that, and I know that what we saw last night between Iowa and LSU was the creme de la creme matchup of the women's tournament. But I was just as equally impressed. Like, I knew what I expected out of Iowa and LSU. You know, I didn't know who was going to win the game. I thought LSU was going to win the game. I thought they were the more well-rounded team. And to Iowa's credit, and it's the brilliance of Caitlin Clark, she made her teammates around her better last night. And I didn't know if those teammates would help her out in some capacity to win the game, and they ended up doing so. But with how much we talked about LSU and Iowa, we all knew that was the main course. But even though it followed the main course, or I guess we could just say the dessert here of what we did get to see with USC and UConn, the dessert was extremely memorable. And that was another just as equally fun game, even if it didn't have all the pomp and circumstances as the first game did. But my big takeaway, outside of the Caitlin Clark factor, is that what we got to see last night shows how strong of a spot the women's game is in. Because no offense to the men in the NCAA tournament, but there has not been as much hype in the NCAA tournament for the men's throughout this entire tourney as there was from last night's event. And that's what I call it. It wasn't just a game. That was an event in Albany, New York with Iowa and LSU. That is how damn sensational of a stage that was. And it's everything that you wanted. Yeah, I could argue in the fourth quarter, I wish the game was a little bit more competitive and I wish it was a little bit more close. But they gave you 3 quarters of excellent basketball. And it just shows you as sports fans, doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. None of that stuff matters in sports. That's the neat part about sports, is that it brings and unifies so many people from so many different walks of life. And the cool part about sports, and you go into a locker room, everyone has a chance. Everyone has a chance to succeed. And we know the history, the last 2 years between Iowa and LSU. We know the theatrics and the drama and the stage that occurred a year ago in the national championship game. And then to have that follow through the next year, I know it wasn't the Final Four. I know it wasn't a championship game. But to have that stage in the Elite Eight, that not only took over women's college basketball, but that took over the sports world last night. That's how big of a deal it was. That was the lead story on every sports show throughout the country, was the results of Iowa and LSU. And it just shows you, as a sport consumer and a sport fan, and I'm not going to pretend like I religiously watch women's college basketball, but it just shows you what draws an audience. We want big stars, we want personalities, and we want greatness. And what you got to see last night with Caitlin Clark, it was like watching Tom Brady on a basketball court. It was like watching Patrick Mahomes on a basketball court. She is the female version of Steph Curry, where she makes just jaw-dropping three-pointer after three-pointer from so many different behind-the-arc lengths away. That is just flat-out ridiculous. And that initial three-point shot set the tone of the night it was going to be for Caitlin Clark. So it's one thing to bring up Steph Curry, but then some people say, Zach, why did you bring up Tom Brady? Why did you bring up Patrick Mahomes? Because those are killers. Like when those guys step onto a football field, it doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. You know they're going to give it their best. You know that they're going to entertain, and you know you're going to be in for the fight of your life. And when Caitlin Clark steps on a basketball court, that's what she does. And not only that, like Brady, like Mahomes, they not only dominate and they not only take the stage and the spotlight is on them, but they also make so many other people around them better. Like we could look at the great night that she had with the 9 3-pointers, and we could look at the 41 points, and we could be delirious over those numbers. But the 12 assists is the reason why Iowa's the better team up against LSU last night. And you see 2 other players for Iowa get into double digits. That was essential. That was priority number 1 for them to score, for them to get a victory last night. Because on LSU, you knew more than just Angel Reese. Like, you knew about Haley Van Lith. You knew about Flau'jae Johnson. And you knew the team and how well-rounded of a team LSU was. The question for Iowa was, would someone other than Caitlin Clark step up? And last night, that answer was yes. So to see Caitlin Clark continue is phenomenal. And I'll raise my hand. I know I'm wearing LSU purple today. May not be the best choice color, but I'll raise my hand, and I thought because of how more well-rounded LSU was, that they were going to get the job done last night. But even though I believed LSU was going to win the game, it was a coin flip, right? We even said that this game was truly a coin flip, and Iowa was the better team. But Caitlin Clark winning last night was the best thing for women's college basketball. Because the women's college basketball fan is always going to watch, but look how many more eyeballs have been brought in recently in the last 2 years. And whether you like it or not, the biggest star in that sport right now is Caitlin Clark. She is the biggest draw to the sport. And it almost would have been criminal to have her go home in the Elite Eight. And now she advances to the Final Four. She'll go up against UConn, which, by the way, Caitlin Clark is 0-2 in her career up against the UConn Huskies. But there's one more Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes type of moment. And that's obviously winning a championship. But the one that I'm really going at is defeating UConn. Because UConn is 2-0 up against Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes when Caitlin Clark has been at Iowa. And not only that, Caitlin Clark wanted to go to UConn. She dreamed about going to UConn and playing for Gino Auriemma, and there was really not a lot of communication in a recruiting process. So she has a chip on her shoulder. For the entire year, it was marketed as, can Iowa get back and go up against LSU, and can they right the wrong, let's just say, get revenge from what occurred a year ago. Now that's a check. But as Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant would say, job's not done yet. And Caitlin Clark said that after the game as well last night. The job isn't done yet. Yes, this will be the most memorable moment. This will be the game that we will talk about the most. But you have another great matchup. Like, think about this. And it just shows where the sport is. It's not just Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Now we get to advance to seeing Paige of UConn, Paige Buckets, go up against Caitlin Clark. And before the injury that caused Paige to miss all last season, she was the talk of women's college basketball. And now we get to see both of them go toe for toe on the biggest stage. And that's going to be fun with the spot in the national championship game on the line. And oh yeah, by the way, who could be waiting in the national championship game? Undefeated South Carolina. And that's another interesting note. You have South Carolina going up against NC State. NC State in the men's and women's Final Four. For UConn in the men's and women's Final Four, which I just found to be very unique. That you see it twice now happen in those four teams. But you look at this run that Caitlin Clark has the potential to go on. It is one of those all-time great runs. If she could cap this off and win the next two. And you could put it with runs that Brady has gone on, Steph Curry has gone on, Patrick Mahomes, all the great athletes. This is right up there if she gets the job done. Because if you look at it, she has the possibility to go from taking down her rival, right, the person that we associate her the most with in competition in Angel Reese, then following it up by going up against Paige and UConn, right, a creme de la creme program, a program that has meant so much to the sport, and then you could follow it up potentially going up against an undefeated South Carolina team with the legendary coach in Dawn Staley. And that's why women's college basketball is in a great spot. It's in a great spot because you're seeing continuity, you're seeing big stars, you're seeing big names, and that elicits a great response, whether you have been a college basketball fan or are just becoming a fan of women's college basketball. And it wasn't just last night with Iowa and LSU. It was also the game that followed it. Because if I just wanted to watch that one event, well, is the sport really in a good spot? But the fact that I wanted to stay and stayed up late last night to watch the entirety of that USC matchup up against UConn shows that there's enough interest, there's enough stars, and people are just attracted to greatness. And the fact that you have a group of women that are all similar in age, and I'm not telling you that this means I'm going to watch, the WNBA for the next 10 years. But if I hear Caitlin Clark's going up against Angel Reese in the WNBA, or Caitlin Clark is going up against Paige in the WNBA, or down the road, because I know she's younger, Juju Watkins against Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark or Paige, yeah, that gives you a reason because of the past history why you would want to tune into the event and see the future of this. So this may be lightning in the bottle, or it could be the start of a significant growth of interest in women's basketball. But it's not that crazy of a formula. Be a big star, be able to entertain, be able to provide jaw-dropping moments, and be able to dominate with excellence on a basketball court. And whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, hockey, baseball, the NFL, the people we remember are these stars that do things that leave an everlasting kind of reminder on your brain and in your memory. And Caitlin Clark is right up there with what she's been able to do so far, where when you mention other great athletes, you remember them for multiple moments. And for Caitlin Clark, she's been having her moment the last 2 years, and it's done just wonders for the sport and for many ladies around the country. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. What was your biggest takeaway from Iowa LSU last night? We'll take a break. When we come on back, MVS will join us in studio. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, formerly of not only the Green Bay Packers, but also the Kansas City Chiefs.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is UConn guard Paige Beckers. Through 4 games of the NCAA Women's Tournament so far, Beckers has 6 blocks, 13 steals, and 36 rebounds. And we know Paige Beckers will be going up against the Iowa Hawkeyes coming up on Friday. As we do have one part of the Final Four, it will be Paige Beckers going up against Caitlin Clark. Iowa and UConn can't wait for that. We are going to be joined momentarily by Marquez Valdez-Scantling in studio, who did catch a big touchdown in the Super Bowl this past year. And we know in that Super Bowl, I really thought that sequence is what changed the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Because for the Chiefs, they were not playing great in that game. They were flat offensively. And remember, they got the fortuitous bounce on the kick return. And then right away, it was the next play. Once they got that ball back, they threw it to MVS for a touchdown. And once Kansas City got the lead in that game, I know that there was a lot of back and forth in the fourth quarter. And clearly, it did go to an overtime. And we all know the controversial decision where the San Francisco 49ers did take the ball first. And then they got a field goal. Then Mahomes gets the touchdown to McCole Hardman to walk it off. But once the Chiefs were able to get the lead in that game, when they were pretty flat early on, I'm like, 49ers had an opportunity. The 49ers had a chance to put the nail in the coffin on Kansas City. And you remember the first time they did go up against them, they were up by 10, but they were never able to put them away. And when they were able to reclaim or get that lead, Kansas City in that Super Bowl, it just felt like, all righty, you got a brand new game. And it was a missed opportunity where for a while it was turned in the favor of the 49ers, and the 49ers looked like the more dominant team, but it wasn't reflecting on the scoreboard. And then, boom, that game became a back and forth kind of scenario. And ultimately, when you allow Kansas City to hang around and then you allow Kansas City to go back and forth, you know that they're going to deliver the last punch, and the last punch is going to be a knockout. And that's crazy. In all these Kansas City runs that we've seen them win 3 Super Bowls, they were down big against the Texans. They were down big against the Buffalo Bills, Tennessee. Like, you could just go through them. Philadelphia in the Super Bowl as well, where they're down by 10. Like, you look back, they've been down by double digits 3 times in the Super Bowl, in all 3 Super Bowls. And it still has not mattered. And those games we'll look back at with the excellence of Kansas City. And we will look back at that run and we'll say how many teams and how many players could have got a ring that didn't. And you'll remember those moments. Like, you will remember Kyle Shanahan electing to throw the football with Jimmy Garoppolo and Chris Jones batting it down. And then Kyle Shanahan throwing the football, airing it out, and it was the right play call. And then Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew Emmanuel Sanders. You remember the Eagles being up by 10, and from the first half to the second half being a difference in the football team that we got to see. The choke of Bill O'Brien when he was up 20-something points. Buffalo with 13 seconds having that lead, and then the 49ers allowing it to happen again, where really you look back at that Super Bowl, it did remind me a lot like the Patriots and the Rams a second go-around, where you knew the Patriots were the better team, but it wasn't reflected on the scoreboard. The difference here, though, was Brady was playing with the lead and never gave it back. In this past Super Bowl, Brock Purdy was playing with a lead, and you knew that the lead wasn't insurmountable. And that's the biggest thing with Kansas City. When you have that opportunity to take them out, when you have that opportunity to issue that kill shot, you got to slay the champion. And there are going to be so many players, just like when you look back at Tom Brady, and you see how many players were prevented from winning, or organizations that won but could have won more if it wasn't for Tom Brady, that really changed the landscape of not only NFL, but also individuals. Like, I think Phillip Rivers should be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Phillip Rivers lost in 2 playoff games that I remember up against the Patriots. Imagine if he would have won, and if he had a ring. It wouldn't even be a debate right now about Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers retired as top 10 in passing touchdowns and top 10 in passing yards. I think he was both at 6 respectively when he did retire. But everyone says, what about Phillip Rivers? didn't have a Super Bowl ring. What did people say about Peyton Manning? I know he eventually got to, but how many times earlier in his career Brady prevented Manning from having a breakout early on and winning multiple championships instead of snagging the second one at the back end of his career. Even in Aaron Rodgers. Like when Brady went to Tampa Bay, Brady and the Bucs prevented Rodgers from getting to another Super Bowl. So you see those players and you see those teams and you see those moments and those coaches, Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan. Everyone remembers them. And there will always be those coaches and those players that you remember, they were good, but we don't refer to them as all-time greats, or we look at their career differently because they weren't able to slay the dragon. They weren't able to slay the monster. And it's crazy how quickly that changes, where you go from one dynasty, from 20 years of dominance, and that great dynasty that you saw with the Patriots, and now just this unreal dynasty with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to be joining us right now in studio. We appreciate MVS from coming on in today. Let's put him right over there if we don't mind. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling, currently a free agent wide receiver. We all remember his big touchdown catch in the Super Bowl this past year. MVS, appreciate you coming on in. Thanks so much for the time. Let's just make sure we get his microphone potted up. But MVS, thanks so much for coming on. How you been?
Yeah, man, for sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So let me take you back to the Super Bowl first.
Yeah.
That game, it felt like that it was going the way of the 49ers. And then it changed on a special teams play. And then the next play, you caught that touchdown. Did you feel that momentum shift in the game at the time?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL is all about momentum. Timing is everything. The margin of, winning and losing is so small. And so anything that we can do to kind of, turn the momentum to our side and kind of run with it, we'll take advantage of it. And we did that.
How do you describe playing and being a teammate of Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it, man. I was able to win 2 Super Bowls with him. He's a fearless leader, super competitive. He's going to will his team to victory week in and week out, no matter the circumstances.
Are there there's definitely similarities between Mahomes and Rodgers.
Yeah.
Are they different, though? I know they're all-time greats, but do you feel like they're different, you being a teammate of his in Green Bay with Aaron and then Kansas City, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they're both winners. They're both leaders. They're both great teammates, great friends of mine. Those are relationships that I'll have for the rest of my life, no matter where this football thing takes me. I'm grateful to have both those guys to be, the first 2 stops in my career. But the difference is, there's not many. I think it's the age. I think that's kind of it. Pat's a little more outspoken, a little more fiery. Aaron's a little more reserved, and but their play is one of a kind.
Can you pick which one is the better quarterback since you were able to play with both of them?
Nah, man, they're 2 different guys. But their skill sets are very similar. What they do, how they attack the game, their mentality. I wouldn't say one's better, one's they think they're just different, but they're both great in their own ways.
Talking to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, kind enough to join us in studio. We'll get into the free agency search in just a bit, but going back to this run that Kansas City just had this past year, usually you guys don't get doubted because you guys have been the team to beat for a while now, but this year it seemed like there were moments in the season where the offense wasn't always as dominant. We know the defense was showing up, and even Pat talked about learning how to be more of a game manager this year. Was there ever doubt, though, in that locker room? Like after the Raiders game where you guys lost, was there ever a moment where this team seriously doubted themselves?
Nah, not ever internally. We just had to figure out a couple of things, internally to kind of get us to where we wanted to be. And, once we did that, we started clicking. I think that's kind of where, our season started to kind of change and things started to work. Obviously, you come off a Super Bowl win and your season's longer than everybody else's the year before. And, everybody's giving you their best shot. So we were able to come in and just kind of weather that storm and, went back to back.
As a player in Kansas City, as you talked about, you know what the standard is. It's Super Bowl or bust every year. As long as 15 is on that field with Andy Reid on the sidelines, everyone expects a Super Bowl every year. Is it tough at times to get up for the regular season knowing that nationally the Chiefs season doesn't really start until the postseason?
No, I don't think so. I think it's one of those things where you never take this game for granted because you never know when your last game is going to be. So, having the opportunity to go out there, you thank God every day to be able to go out there and play those games. You're only guaranteed 17 games, and not guarantee the postseason. And so just being able to go out there and, play each game like it could be your last game. You never take those moments for granted, never take those games for granted.
What has Andy Reid meant to your career, just wondering?
Coach Reid's, he's like a granddad, man. He's like one of those guys you never want to disappoint. He doesn't say much, but he cares more about you than, any other person in that building. As a person, as a player, he wants you to succeed, on and off the field. He's super supportive. He'll invite you over to his house for, Thanksgiving, Christmas if you don't have a place to go. Like, he's one of those coaches where he genuinely cares about the player, on and off the field. And he's just been able to kind of, just be one of the greatest coaches to ever play this game. And I'm honored to, be a part of his team.
Now, when I think of Andy Reid, I think of two things. I think of football, obviously, and then I think of food. And we all know he loves when you guys get him the burgers for gifts. But you playing and living in Kansas City the last 2 years, what was your favorite barbecue spot? Just wondering.
I don't know, man. Kind of tried them all. I don't think I had one that was just like.
Jack Stacks was my favorite.
Jack Stacks was cool. I had that like when I first moved out there. I lived up in Liberty, so it was kind of a bit out the ways from all the, the main barbecue places downtown.
How about the atmosphere in Kansas City, right? You have a legendary franchise, Arrowhead Stadium, and then you've also played in Green Bay. Yep. And we all know the legendary franchise of the Packers. How about playing for those two fan bases?
Man, I think I got spoiled, coming out of college. When I was getting drafted, I was like, man, I don't want to go play anywhere cold. And then I got the coldest place, so God will humble you sometimes. But just started my career there, one of those legendary franchises that's, one of the oldest to ever, be a part of this National Football League, historic that I was able to be a part of that and won a lot of games there, had a lot of great teammates, learned a lot of stuff to grow as a man, and then going to play in Kansas City for my next 2 years and win 2 Super Bowls, part of another historic franchise. I'm just honored and privileged to be able to, say those are my 2 homes for the last 6 years.
Now, you play in your college ball at USF, now going up against the Dolphins in that playoff game. How cold was it? Like, we read all the reports of the aftermath, but how cold was it that night?
I mean, it didn't matter where you played football at. It didn't matter where you lived. You could have lived in Antarctica, and that still would have been cold to play in, man. Being out there for, 4 hours and, negative whatever temperature it was, and helmets were breaking, chin straps were broken because that's how cold it was. The ground was frozen. There's literally nothing you can do to keep warm. But we had a little bit of advantage because I think it was like 80 degrees in Miami when they had to fly up there and play in that. So you're talking about 100-degree temperature change. That's huge.
You know the business of the NFL. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is here with us. You catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and then shortly after that, Kansas City moves on from you, and they released you. Just how'd you kind of process that news when it happened back in February?
It's part of the game, man. You want to finish your career out wherever you can, but you're not going to stay on the same team forever. There's only a select few guys that can do that, and I was fortunate enough to take my next step and from Green Bay to Kansas City, win 2 Super Bowls, signed my second contract, and be able to be a part of a great team that won 2 Super Bowls and 3 in the last 5 years, to be a part of a dynasty, and I'm just grateful for that opportunity.
For the next chapter, like let's say I'm an NFL GM and I hit you up, I go, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, why should I take a chance on you? What can you still bring to a team? What do you say?
Man, turn the tape on. It's all there.
That just simple as that.
It's all there.
Okay. Now, has it been busy? Like, do you expect to sign something soon?
Yeah, man. It's I could have signed yesterday. Could have signed 2 weeks ago. But it's all about the right opportunity. Obviously I've been in this league, for some time, and it's not always about jumping out of there and and doing it right then and there. It's about taking your time and figuring out what's going to be the best situation for you, the best fit for you. Obviously you want to go to a team that's still competitive, because obviously I've been a part of 2 great teams my last 6 years, and 2 Super Bowls and NFC championships, and so I've done all that. I've been to the playoffs every year that I've played in this league, so I still want to go and compete at a high level, and obviously taking care of myself and my family and my future. So those are the things that are important to me right now.
This could be a bizarre question because I know they just got rid of you and they released you, but with the Rasheed Rice situation that's going on right now, and we don't know what his status is going to be, if Kansas City called you back up, would you be interested in a return?
That's a question for me and my agent to talk about, but Rasheed's going to be fine, and praying for all the people who were infected in that car accident.
Wrap it up with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, kind enough to join us in studio. Let me just get back to Aaron Rodgers. Have the Jets at all been interested? Just wondering.
I mean, me and Aaron have talked, but like I said, it's a conversation for me and my agent to kind of talk about. I don't really want to talk about free agency stuff right now. I'll let that handle itself. Right now, I'm, looking forward to, whatever that looks like.
How about wide receivers right now in the NFL? Like, when you got into the league, who were some of the wide receivers that you looked up to, and now who are some of the wide receivers that are younger that you say, okay, they're really impressive?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, Larry Fitzgerald was always my favorite wide receiver. That's why I wore number 11. Obviously Julio Jones, looked up to him, similar body type, runs fast, kind of do some of the same things that I tried to emulate when I was coming into the league. So, those are the two guys that I really, admired and looked up to. And then obviously playing in Green Bay, I got to watch Davante Adams play, day in and day out. And, I still think he's the best receiver in the league. And so just watching those guys and learning from those guys has been, something I've always enjoyed and took so many notes from, and just watch how they moved and watch what they did. But there's a lot of young guys, man, that are playing well, and I'm excited to see kind of what the future of the NFL looks like at wideout.
It's a business, obviously, but to still see Davante Adams, I know it's been a few years, in a Raiders uniform, is that bizarre since you guys were together in Green Bay?
Nah, because I was in a Chiefs uniform. I got to play him twice a year, and he's still one of my closest friends that, I've made through the NFL. We still talk regularly, literally all the time. Check in with him, checks in on me. We talk about football, talk about life. Still send each other memes on Instagram, and so, like I said, that's one of my boys, for real. So,
So many people pretend to know Aaron Rodgers, and there's a perception that's painted of him.
Yeah.
Since you were a teammate of his, and you got to know him when you were a little bit younger, entering the league as he was so established, just what kind of teammate is Aaron?
Man, he's one of the greatest teammates you'll ever find. He cares more about his teammates than about the game of football. I think that's something that people don't really understand because they get this perception of him that he's, this diva, or that he's all about himself, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. Aaron has taught me so much stuff, on the field and off the field. He's, a big advocate of just, your mental health and how you approach, life, not even just football, and, the things that he's gone through, over the years. He shares that and kind of just lets you know, like, hey, I'm human too. I may throw this football really, really well, but I'm human too. And, I have bad days, I have good days, and just for him to, be able to open that up and be a great friend to me, not even just a teammate, but a great friend to me. I'm forever indebted to him. He's one of the guys that'll text me, and say, hey, I'm proud of you, even if it's, completely random, just, hey, I'm reaching out to you, love you, bro. Like, those are things, like I said, I haven't been his teammate in, 2-3 years now, and, we still have that same relationship.
Last thing I want to ask you, and I want to get an offensive player's perspective on this because we've seen it go both ways. They bet in the hip drop tackle.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you kind of react to that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Good luck to the defense, man. It's already hard enough to stop what we do offensively. So telling them how they got to tackle, it's good luck. Good luck.
So it seems like you kind of see the other side of it, like the defensive player side, where it's like, okay, how do you tackle someone?
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine trying to tackle Travis Kelce. He's 260-something pounds running away from you, and all you got is, right behind him, and what are you going to do? Like, jump on his back, like, get horse collared. And so there's just so many, variables that comes to, these guys making these adjustments for the defensive players, trying to bring down, guys that are, that big, and they have no idea what to do when they have to actually tackle them.
Last thing for Marquez Valdes-Scantling, since you brought up Travis Kelce, you guys always had a lot of attention in Kansas City. This year, though, it got turned up a little bit with Travis and Taylor dating. Just what was all that extra attention like? And like at the Super Bowl, I felt like every question was about Taylor Swift on that opening night.
I mean, it wasn't really for us. I mean, we just treated it like another player and their girlfriend. Like, it wasn't a distraction indoors. Obviously that's his personal life, and what he did outside of it was all on him. But in the building, it didn't bother us. Like, to the TV, it may seem like it, but when we were at our football game, we had a game to play. So we weren't looking up in the press box to try to find Taylor. She's a great person and super supportive, and supported Travis, every time she could, and that was dope to see. But we treat her just like every other, girlfriend or wife, a part of the team. I think that was, cool for her to be a part of that as well, so she can, feel human as well, because she's the biggest in the world. And so being able to come in and be around the players and interact with us like normal humans, I think that was cool for her too.
Well, good luck in whatever's next and where you wind up for this upcoming football season. Appreciate you coming on in today.
Yeah, man. Thanks. No problem.
There he is, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show. We'll take a timeout, and when we return, we'll do a little news brief, or actually we'll talk about Raheem Morris and the impact that he could have on the Falcons in year one. Update time first, so let's get to the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility, great pay, and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. There's one day game in the majors as the 3-0 Brewers host the Twins shortly in their home opener. The Yankees have steamrolled their way through the first 5 games, winning all, and look to remain unbeaten tonight when they continue their series in Arizona. Larry Lucchino, the Red Sox president for 3 of their championships, has died at the age of 78. He was the person that brought Theo Epstein to Boston, also vital in the construction of Camden Yards and Petco Park. Denver continues its chase to the Thunder for the top seed in the West. The defending champs open the day a half game back and will host the Spurs. Finals MVP Nikola Jokic looking to add another regular season MVP award, coming off his 22nd triple-double of the year. Head coach Michael Malone grateful to have his big man.
We've come to expect greatness every night. But within that greatness, he'll do things, whether it's the behind-the-back pass, whether it's, just the moves he makes in the post, the finishing. His ability to control the game is second to none. And I will never, ever, ever take Nikola for granted.
The Thunder are in Philadelphia tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
What's going on, everybody? This is JR. Join me here on CBS Sports Radio for the JR Sport Brief. Weeknights, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Appreciate MVS for joining us in studio. You know, I think he's in an interesting spot. Like, he's a solid player, but to me, it's so interesting the way that he said he could have signed like weeks ago if he really wanted to. But then you also got to think, because everyone looks at something like differently and the free agency differently. Like, remember DeAndre Hopkins last year? He made it seem as if winning was the number one priority. And in reality, it was where could he go to be a number one wide receiver and also get the most money, which I will never fault a player for that. Like, you only have so many limited snaps in the NFL. If you want to go get the biggest bag possible, then go do that. But everyone says it's all about winning. Now, I don't know what the interest has been really for Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but Stu, when you're in a spot where you go from Aaron Rodgers, where yes, you didn't win a Super Bowl, but you always go in deep in the playoffs, and then you get into this Kansas City culture where you win 2 Super Bowls in back-to-back season. When you factor that in, great quarterback, playoff environment, Super Bowl environment, that's got to be tough to just say, like, I don't know, the Patriots call you. You know, the Patriots of 2024. Or, you know, another lower-level team like Arizona calls you. Where, like, MVS, as crazy as it seems, could be the best receiving option until the draft in Arizona and would be the best receiving option right now, you know, him or Kendrick Bourne in New England. So your targets would go up. But then it's like, okay, do you believe in the quarterback throwing the football? And that's got to be tough when you're used to being in the, let's just call it the penthouse of quarterbacks. And even though the Packers didn't get to another Super Bowl with Rodgers being their quarterback, but they were always in the mix. And then you have Mahomes, who's been, right, the standard for the last few years. It's got to be tough to just sign with any team and any quarterback.
It's got to be, and I think he kind of alluded to that he's been waiting. I kind of think maybe that's why he's waiting. Like, maybe some of the teams that have, again, I'm just speculating here, but maybe some of the teams that have reached out to him are teams that are, you know, they're not Mahomes or Rodgers. They might be more rebuild teams, and maybe he's just waiting for a call from a playoff team or a team with a really good quarterback to try to land there.
And at this stage of the game, with how late we are already in the free agency cycle, you're not going to be getting mega money right now. So maybe you wait until someone goes down with an injury, and then it increases that need where, okay, you'll still make your money then, but you get to kind of conserve your energy and also the wear and tear on your body for a little bit and not go through some of this monotonous off-season training, and then you swoop in either later in the summer or maybe even a few weeks into the football season. I don't know if it will go that far where you wait 5-6 weeks in until a wide receiver goes down, but it wouldn't shock me in this situation. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Hey, by the way, I want to play you this audio. This is from the Honey Badger in Tyrann Mathieu, and he was talking about Bijan Robinson. And we know last year Bijan Robinson got screwed by the coaching staff and Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is what was the biggest detriment to the Falcons last year, because it was obvious to anyone that you did not need to try to make Desmond Ridder your franchise quarterback. He needed to be your franchise game manager. That's what he needed to be. And they took away so many reps from Bijan and from Tyler Algier trying to prove the point with Desmond Ridder. And it cost Arthur Smith his job. Because I don't think anyone went into last season saying Arthur Smith was on the hot seat. And he ended up getting fired because that was a team that was good enough to win a dreadful NFC South, and they didn't because of a backwards approach. So here's the Honey Badger on the future of Bijan Robinson.
Man, he's going to be special. Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, what I mean? Like LaDainian Tomlinson, And I didn't think the Falcons really used him as good as they should have last year, but, man, he's going to be good.
Yeah.
He's going to be real good. Yeah.
And that's not foreign for a player on a rival team to give now someone a compliment. Like if this was the 1980s, it may be a little bit different, but Tyrann Mathieu has played for the Saints the last few seasons. So that, to me, is even more of an indictment on Arthur Smith, because the Honey Badger basically said, that dude's going to be an all-time great. And I remember when we got a chance to talk to Bijan at the Super Bowl, and I said to him, because you guys know my interview style, I'm not afraid to ask uncomfortable questions, and I ask questions that listeners want to hear. And I even said it right to Bijan's face. I'm like, they didn't use you properly last year. And it was mystifying to me. And even Bijan was saying they had a plan where they wanted to make sure they wouldn't exert everything I had in year one or things like that. And I cut him short. I said, that plan doesn't make sense, because everyone talks about the running backs as not having this large and long shelf life in the NFL. So why wouldn't they try to use the most out of you, especially earlier in your career? And he even said, I agreed. Like, I was ready to go. He's NFL ready. So I look at the Falcons this year. I was down on the Raheem Morris hire at first because of the process. Because I thought people in that building went to Arthur Blank and said, don't hire Bill Belichick, because they were afraid they were going to lose their job. But now, after having it kind of marinate for the last few weeks, Raheem Morris will do a good job in the defense. They're bringing Zach Robinson on the offensive side of the ball as the OC. I just can't see this staff repeating the same mistakes that the old regime did. It would be the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect something's going to be different. So this staff knows that, yes, you have Kirk Cousins who's going to improve that team, but still, you got to run the ball with Bijan a lot. And I do believe Kirk Cousins will be in the comeback player of the year conversation. I do believe Raheem Morris will be in the coach of the year conversation, because I do have the Falcons winning the NFC South. I don't think either are probably going to win the award, but I could see Bijan Robinson being the offensive player of the year this upcoming season. Catching the ball out of the backfield, and we'll know what he'll do in between the tackles and outside the tackles as well, running the football. He was fine last year. He was good last year, but he could be even better. They just didn't give him enough of an opportunity last year, which is still mind-boggling and an indictment of Arthur Smith. And that's the reason Arthur Smith got fired.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. New Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord going to stop by 40 minutes from now. Coming up in hour number 3 at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific from the UConn basketball team. Their star Donovan Clingan will join us. We are off to Arizona as a show coming up tomorrow, early morning flight. There is some big-time rain in the New York City area, and we are cutting it close. We are taking an early morning flight tomorrow. We're hoping it gets out on time. Once we land, we will dash to the affiliate we're doing the show from on Wednesday, and hopefully everything will be on time. Hopefully there won't be delays. If there are delays, maybe we won't be on the air tomorrow, but we do plan and should be on the air tomorrow. And then Thursday and Friday we'll be at the Westwood One NCAA Tournament Final Four, Men's Final Four Radio Row, where we will have a plethora of guests with college basketball coaches, former college basketball players. It will be a who's in the men's game that will be joining us live on Radio Row Thursday and Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. Now, I do wonder if Eric Musselman will be at the Final Four. Now, there's always that coaches conference that goes on, so all the coaches are there. But the reason why I say Eric Musselman, the head coach of Arkansas and the Muss Bus, because the Muss Bus could be on the move. Now, Andy Enfield did leave USC, which was a little surprising, and he's been fine as the head coach of USC. But when you go on one of these great runs in the NCAA tournament, it feels like the next job, like the big job that you get, doesn't always work out to the way that we think it's going to. Like Enfield was fine at USC after that great run that he had. Remember him as the coach of Dunk City with Florida Gulf Coast. You look at like Porter Moser, who they were going to be a tournament team and then they missed out the tournament. They were dreadful down the stretch, but he did go from Loyola Chicago eventually to Oklahoma. You know, Larinaga, it took him forever to leave George Mason, but he's been a player at Miami and he's brought Miami basketball to a good level, and he was in the Final Four a year ago. And you had that kid Isaiah Wong, who was just phenomenal on the basketball court for them, and a few others. But a lot of times when, like Shaka Smart, remember him at VCU and then Texas? There was nothing great at Texas, and now he's had more success at Marquette. So for a lot of these coaches that have great success in the NCAA tournament, that is kind of unheard of or comes out of nowhere, like they haven't been disasters at their next job, at their first big job. But it's not as if they've gone on to these legendary heights and have gone on to these great careers. Now, Eric Musselman has been a coaching legend. Legend's too strong of a word, but he's been a part of the coaching community for a long time. And we've seen him coach in the NBA. We've seen him coach in college. And when he was at Nevada, he had a lot of energy, and we saw him have success and get to the NCAA tournament. You had the two Martin twins, remember them? And now, you know, he's been successful at Arkansas. But USC opens up. You know, Arkansas is in the SEC. SC is moving to the Big Ten, and that's going to start this upcoming season, right? Football in the fall, as you have the conference shift and all conference realignment is out of sync. And USC is a big brand, and it would be a fine move. And here's the other thing, too, about this, Stu. What about the Bronny James factor in this? Because we know Musselman has an NBA background. We know Musselman is a great promoter. That's also kind of the undercovered part of Andy Enfield leaving, where everyone's like, okay, you leave USC to go to SMU. Maybe he kind of thought it was similar to what did transpire with Shaka. When Shaka left Texas to go to Marquette, it's like you hear the writing is on the wall. You know that it's not going to work. It's not going to go to the heights that you thought. So maybe you try to go somewhere else and get out a little bit earlier rather than a year or two too late when they are firing you. Like, remember, hey, Porter Moser denied this, but Porter Moser, there was some thought that he was going to go to DePaul, and it was like, you're going to leave Oklahoma to go to DePaul? Why would you do that? And eventually Holtman, coming over from Ohio State, once he got axed, he ended up getting the DePaul job. But Musselman, I don't think he's in danger of losing his job, but I wonder if maybe Musselman says, let me go to USC, right, as they embark on this new journey in the Big Ten, and let me latch on to maybe the last year of Bronny James. And I know, right, obviously it's weird to talk about Bronny James. Like, I've always found it weird to talk about Bronny James when he was in high school, because, like, I felt the same way about Arch Manning. But once you go to college, I think it's fair game to talk about them more. But then you also have the sensitivity with the heart issue that happened to Bronny James a year ago, almost a year ago. And then you have the also story of LeBron wanting his son to be on the same team as him, but we don't know if Bronny wants that. With USC not making the tournament this year and USC seasons now being over the last few weeks, Stu, we have not heard much about the future of Bronny James, where there was this thought he could be one and done. I don't think he's going to be one and done. And maybe then you start to hear LeBron the other night also speculate about his retirement, where he's like, the end is not that far away like people make it out to be. He didn't put an exact time, but he made it seem like it was sooner rather than later. And LeBron turns 40 in December. And I said this yesterday, I think LeBron's going to play one more season. But if Bronny, let's say, returns to USC, maybe he gets Muss as his head coach, as according to On3, Arkansas head coach Eric Musselman is set to interview with USC tomorrow. And that was about like 30 minutes ago that was put out there by Scott Schrader, who is the analyst and head publisher of WeAreSC.com and On3 USC. Maybe they kind of line that up where LeBron is so much about his image, where LeBron made it clear he wants his son on his team. Maybe the son doesn't want it. So Bronny goes back for another year. Maybe Muss is his head coach. You get a little NBA experience in there too. Not that really Bronny James needs any help for NBA experience when his father is his teacher, right? It's his dad and LeBron James, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And maybe that's the out that LeBron has, where LeBron could be still in the NBA and Bronny could be on another team. I get that. But if you want to end your career, you feel like you're not going to win another championship, maybe you re-sign with the Lakers this year for one more year. You play out this year, and then your son bypasses his third year in college basketball. And after this year, after one more season of college basketball, he walks off into the pros. But I wonder more about the Andy Enfield part, about why he took the SMU job. Did he feel like it was almost going to be coming to an end at USC? I'm not speculating that maybe LeBron wanted Andy out. I don't know what that is, but it's just one of those things where it was kind of a move that raised an eyebrow, and no one talked about the Bronny James factor. And I don't think, Stu, you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Bronny James is going to declare for the NBA draft in the next few weeks. I'd kind of be surprised at that by this point.
Yeah, I agree. We've heard nothing on that, and I feel like if he was, we probably would have heard some speculation about it, but it does feel kind of quiet at this point, and yeah, that kind of would make a lot of sense, having a guy like Musselman come in, and I know he's done a very nice job. He's had a very good career, and he went to San Diego, so it'll be kind of like a homecoming for him of sorts, has the NBA experience as a coach, so yeah, I think from all parties that would kind of make sense. I definitely think Bronny would stay a second year. Yeah. I can't imagine him coming out.
So maybe that's why it's not a story, because most people expect him to return. But with how much of a story it was when he was in high school, and even this first year of college, where LeBron really laid into he'll go to USC and then, okay, we'll link up together in the NBA, and that's my dream. It's crazy how talked about that was. And then you fast forward just a year later. I know there was a health issue, obviously, so I want to be sensitive to that. But a year later, I think most people say, probably behooves Bronny to stay another year. And it hasn't. You haven't even heard a peep about the future of Bronny James, and you just had the coach change at USC. Because usually people would be doing like the windy fingers, right? And they'd be like, oh, Andy takes the SMU job. Bronny's still at USC. Like, what does that mean? What does that tell you? And we've heard nothing. It's been radio silence on the Bronny James front. So at this point, my jaw would hit the floor if we find out that Bronny is going to the NBA. And I'm talking about this offseason. And if that's the case, I think then Bronny is in on him teaming up with his dad wherever that next home is, wherever someone drafts him. But if he returns, it feels like that dream of being on the same team with your son is dead, because how many more years can LeBron really play? He still plays at an incredibly high level, but we've seen his body in LA. It's weird to say break down because he's such in a pristine condition, but we've seen him miss larger stretches of basketball than we've ever seen before in Cleveland and Miami, then back to Cleveland, and now being with the Lakers.
Yeah, I feel like when he was with the Heat and the Cavs both
never
times,
missed.
he was never injured. And even the first year he got to the Lakers, he missed a large chunk of times, and they missed the playoffs. And you're right. It seems like almost every year. Honestly, this year's probably, I think he might have been the most healthy this year. But, yeah, pretty much every year he's had an injury that has kept him out for at least a few weeks here and there.
Yeah, and it just once again shows you. We get accustomed now because of the TB12 method. We think everyone is going to be able to play into their mid-40s. That just doesn't happen. That's an anomaly. And Brady got injured, his big injury kind of in the middle-ish of his career, because that was 2007. And after that, he never suffered a serious major injury that made him miss any time.
And that was also a freak injury. That wasn't like him.
Bernard Pollard.
Yeah, a guy fell into him. So it's not even like...
That dude injured every Patriot.
Yeah.
It wasn't dirty.
No, but that was bad.
But yeah, he was like crawling on the floor basically and knocked Brady's leg out. And that was coming off the Super Bowl loss where they ended up being 18-1. Oh, that was a miserable day. And Brady walked off the field on his own power, which is always crazy. You tear your ACL and you walk off your field on your own power. It's wild to me. And that kind of gave people maybe a little hope, a little false hope that it wasn't as bad as what we thought. And then the next day it came out that, yeah, it was as bad as you thought. It was a torn ACL. Yeah, I remember Wentz. We haven't mentioned Carson Wentz a while on this show. Did you see where Carson Wentz signed yesterday?
I sure did, yeah.
Kansas
How about
City
that?
Chiefs.
How about that?
Does Mahomes get hurt at all? And then you see Carson Wentz gets this redemption journey and then Perloff becomes insufferable? Because it's weird. The people that Perloff love, it's amazing to me how he seriously loves Carson Wentz. And Wentz, I used to be a fan of, and then you kind of realized he was a phony, and you kind of realized he was a fraud, and everything he preached, he didn't practice it. And I do have a minuscule amount of sympathy for Carson Wentz just because of the injuries. But for Perloff, especially as an Eagle fan, and you expect, Eagles fans usually be bitter, and they have a chip on their shoulder, and they hold it against people that screwed over the franchise. It's kind of crazy how much love Perloff still has for Carson Wentz. I saw something yesterday. Perloff is if Andy Reid sees something in you, you're still going to go start, many more years in the NFL. This idea of Carson Wentz continuing to play in the league as a starter is just crazy to me. Absolutely bonkers to me. But Wentz was one of those players where he had his ACL injury. He still stayed in that game against the Rams, threw a touchdown, and then exited the field, and then you found out the worst had happened, which that's crazy to me. I know there's adrenaline, but I don't care who you are. You tear your ACL. That's wild. He was able to stay in that game and still deliver a touchdown pass, which was his last pass of the season. I think it was to Jordan Matthews, if memory does serve me right. I could be wrong on that. But the Perloff bizarre love for Carson Wentz, I never got to the bottom of that. Never have, never will. And there's still a piece of that poster still in their office. I thought we shredded that poster and it was dunzo. But watch. I could just hear it now. Perloff. Mahomes gets hurt in the divisional round, like what happened a few years ago when Chad Henne came in and threw that nice out pass to Tyreek Hill. Good play called by Bieniemy and Reed. I could see Wentz coming on in and in that situation, in that environment in Kansas City, maybe having a successful game or two stint, and then Perloff is some teams got to go sign Carson Wentz. The Carson Wentz part, at this point, you made all the money that you made. Isn't it just time to hang it up? I don't want to be the person that tells someone to retire, and he's still relatively young. But you made all that money. Your body has been through hell and back with all the injuries. You have a wife. I think he has a few kids now, at least one kid. Why don't you just retire? You made it. Yeah, you didn't go on to be what a second pick was supposed to be for a franchise. You had one great season, and that was a season he would have won the MVP if he didn't get hurt. And I know it's tough to move away from your true love of football, but if I'm him, I'd retire at this stage. I don't understand why you want to go through all this anymore still. I really don't.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. He signed that $128 million contract. He's made a lot of money once. So I kind of with you. I was actually shocked that he signed. I thought, he's kind of just going to just be sitting there for a year or two and then hang it up. But, hey, I guess the Chiefs see something, and you never know.
I guess when you get to the backup quarterback conversation, he's not a bad backup quarterback.
No.
But if he had to go play an entirety of a season, I'm not feeling great on that one. So
yeah, you could do worse as backup quarterbacks. I'd take him on the Raiders as a backup.
You would?
I would, yeah.
He could be your starter.
He probably could.
Minshew's, I think, is better at this stage of his career.
Yeah, but I'd rather have Wentz than O'Connell. Even though O'Connell's still young, I don't know.
The Raiders, you know what the Raiders are? The Raiders are depressing.
Of
That's
course
what
they
the
are.
Raiders
That's
are.
why I'm always depressed.
But the quarterback room is really depressing.
Yeah.
Like, we have to hype ourselves up about Gardner Minshew, who's fun. He's easy to root for. But he's Gardner frickin' Minshew. There's a reason why he's a journeyman quarterback. You think he's your starter week 1?
I do. I think that's the way it's trending. I mean, they're going to frame it as a quarterback competition between him and O'Connell. But
Yeah.
And I don't see them trading
It's not
up.
an actual competition.
It's not. And I don't see them trading up. And I think the quarterbacks are going to go pretty quickly. So I don't think they're going to get their hands on a first-round quarterback. So I think it's going to be Minshew for sure.
Williams is off the board.
Yeah.
So they're going to try, because of the Antonio Pierce connection, to trade up for Jaden Daniels. I don't think that's going to be likely. Do you want Drake May? Like, if they gave... Because the Raiders are sitting at 13th?
13, yeah.
Let's say they move up to 3. They swap 3 and 13. The Patriots give you 3, you give them 13, and 2 more future first-round picks. Would you want Drake May for that return?
I feel like at this point I'm kind of backing off of Drake May a little.
Okay.
As a third pick. Like, if he fell in the draft, I think that's someone I would think about, but I don't think you trade up to get him. I think you trade up to get Daniels, and that's about it.
Not J.J. McCarthy?
I would not, no.
No. Not Michael Penix Jr.?
No.
Well, you don't have to trade up to get him.
That's why I like, if Penix falls to 13, or maybe they trade up a few picks to like 10 or something like that, I would take Penix for sure, but
yeah,
I don't know.
By the way, not to poo-poo on Tony Pauline, but I saw he said that there's a lot of buzz that the Patriots have interest in J.J. McCarthy. Let me be abundantly clear. And I love McCarthy at Michigan. I don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. If after all the speculation on who the Patriots quarterback is going to be, if at 3 they take J.J. McCarthy, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not. But I don't buy the Tony Pauline stuff right now, because it's not just Tony. It's anyone right now. I don't know where the root of that report is coming from. And this is lying season. And this is the apex of lying season, because now we're in April. And you don't know who's trying to put that out there to maybe elicit some different response from somebody else to do something in the draft that they normally wouldn't do, or maybe feel like they need to be a little bit extra aggressive in this draft process. But I'm at this point where I want Daniels. I've said I wanted Jaden Daniels for the Patriots. If it's not Jaden Daniels, I'm fine with trading out of the 3rd pick. I think I've already waved the white flag. I wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. If you don't get Daniels, I don't think they're going to do that. But at this point, I think the options have to be one of these 3 things. The Patriots either get Jaden Daniels, they trade the pick, or they take Drake May. Now, I don't think May's going to a good situation. I wouldn't play him in year 1, and that's tough to do. Take a quarterback at 3 and then sit him for a year. But one of those 3 things have to happen this offseason for the Patriots in the draft. They need to either take Jaden Daniels if he's there, and if they don't take Jaden Daniels if he's there, I think I'm just gonna pop a blood vessel. All right, I think I'm gonna lose it on the air. But if not, then I think the 2 options are trade the pick or take Drake May. That's where I'm at, kind of, with the Patriots draft process. All right, we'll take a break. When we come on back, is Angel Reese hated? We'll hear from some of her teammates next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We know the biggest story in sports in the last 24 hours was the great matchup between Caitlin Clark of Iowa and Angel Reese of LSU. As you did see Caitlin Clark get her revenge from losing in the championship game a year ago. Iowa off to the Final Four. They'll go up against Paige Buckets, as we'll see a little UConn and Iowa in the Final Four. And then you do have South Carolina undefeated in the women's tournament taking on NC State. In the aftermath of the LSU loss, and the age minimum for the WNBA is 22. So Angel Reese could go to the pros, but she does have another year of eligibility. So that could have been our last college basketball game last night. We don't know. But Angel Reese, in the press conference afterward, gave a very emotional press conference. And as you should, when it could be the end of your college career and how much LSU has meant to her, right? They've called her the Bayou Barbie, And, she's had such a successful career and has done so many things for college basketball. But if you told me that Angel Reese was crying last night in the press conference, I would have thought it would be, and totally normal, because of the loss, and maybe this is the end of her college career. But I didn't think it was going to be about the hate and criticism that she received, and it was really eye-opening last night. So we'll play you that Angel Reese audio right now.
I don't really get to stand up for myself. I have great teammates. I have a great support system. I got my hometown. I got my family that stands up for me. I don't really get to speak out on things just because I just try to ignore, and I just try to stand strong. Like, I've been through so much. I've seen so much. I've been attacked so many times. Death threats. I've been sexualized. I've been threatened. I've been so many things, and I've stood strong every single time. And I just try to stand strong for my teammates because I don't want them to see me down and, not be there for them. So I just want them to always just know, I'm still a human. All this has happened since I won the national championship, and I said the other day I haven't had peace since then. And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything, and I would still sit here and say, I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. And hopefully the little girls that look up to me, and hopefully I give them some type of inspiration that, hopefully it's not this hard and all the things that come at you, but keep being who you are. Keep waking up every day. Keep being motivated, staying who you are, staying 10 toes, don't back down, and just be confident.
So that was really eye-opening, especially the part where she said since winning the championship, which is the height, right, of her basketball career so far, she hasn't had a peaceful day. Now, naturally, when you're a star and you're a mega star like she is, because of you play in a sport, 50% of the people are going to love you and 50% of the people are going to hate you. What I think happens here is I don't believe most people hate Angel Reese. And I think she's been praised a ton. Now, on the court, she trash talks, but I have no problem with that. She wears the crown and she placed it down on the bench last night. I have no problem about that. She waved goodbye to players that have fouled out. I have no problem about that. But when we're talking about sports, people get so passionate about sports, where then it gives them a platform where there's no checks and balances on social media where they go and attack someone. I'm not saying those things are right, but as someone that's been attacked before on social media, and I understand I don't have the following, I don't have the fame, I don't have the success of an Angel Reese, but I had one person that stalked me once, and I've told that story before, where we had to report it to Spike Eskin, and they got my phone number and nonstop, just talking and texting and calling, just nonstop. But then also, there's just trolls naturally on social media. And those trolls will never find you when you're out. Those trolls in person, most people in Angel Reese in person, I'm sure are wow, you're an inspiration. Wow, you're so great. I want to take a photo with you. I want to get a selfie with you. But on social media, and I'm younger, so I have this perspective, you grow up with the phone in the palm of your hand. So it's easy, right, for someone that's 50 or 60 to say, oh, just stay off social media. But that's not how they were brought up. That's not how they were raised, with the phone in their hand. So Angel Reese, what are you going to tell her? Stop going on Instagram? Stop going on Twitter? And even though there's requests and, you could block someone and you can mute someone, there's still ways that pops up on your feed and you see that. Now, you kind of have to compartmentalize that, and you can't let every little thing get you. Most of the time you could ignore it, but there are some days that you let it get to you. And I think that's what's happening there. If you go in the streets and have an interpersonal communication with someone, I think most of her conversation, right, in the streets, out in public, are probably positive. But it's the trolls on social media that probably get to her. And it's easy to say, oh, just dismiss it. But when you're just trying to be you, and you just try to go on Twitter, and you just try to go on Instagram, and you always have that out there, it's part of being successful. It's part of being famous. It's part of being a star. But it doesn't mean it's right. And everyone's human, and one day it could get to you. Now, the death threats are ridiculous. If you're actually sending someone death threats over sports, you're a loser. All right? You should be in jail, too. So let's hear more from Angel Reese's teammates. This is Flau'jae Johnson. She defends Angel Reese.
Bro, let me tell you something. Everybody can have their opinion on Angel Reese, but y'all don't know her. Y'all don't know Angel Reese. I know Angel Reese. I know the real Angel Reese. And the person I see every day is a strong person. Is a caring, loving person, bro. The crown she wears is heavy, bro. She's the type of teammate that's going to make you believe in yourself. The leap that I took from my freshman to sophomore year, Angel gave me that confidence to go be a dog. Playing next to a dog every day. And, you know, just to see how the media ridicule her, went through our problems, but, like, this is my sister right here. And I'm so proud of her. Like, the media, y'all, how they like to twist and call her the villain and all of that, y'all don't know Angel, bro. And I'm just happy that I get to play with her. I get to be around her presence. Her energy is different. She just made me a better player. She made me a better player, and that's what great players do.
So outside of the ridiculous article that the LA Times had, where they referred to the LSU basketball team as dirty debutantes, I don't think the media coverage has been that negative about Angel Reese. I once again think this is an issue of trolls and people going after Angel Reese on social media. That's what I truly think this is. But it was interesting to hear Flau'jae basically say the media is trying to tear her down. And maybe it's because of how fresh the terrible and despicable article was by the LA Times. And right, Kim Mulkey then played into it with the Washington Post story. So when you have your coach basically saying, screw the media, it's not a surprise when the players say screw the media. I'm not saying all media members go about things the right way. I would never say that. But I don't think this is really, from the larger scale thing, a media issue. I think it's more about just trolls that exist on social media. And finally, here is Haley Van Lith, who defend Angel Reese, and they played together this past year.
I'll say something, too. I think, Angel's one of the toughest people I've been around. People speak hate into her life. I've never seen people wish bad things on someone as much as her, and it does not affect her. She comes to practice every day. She lives her life every day. She lives how she wants to live, and she don't let nobody change that. That's the key to life right there. Y'all do not get to her. Let me say it again. Y'all do not get to Angel Reese, so you might want to give it up. Throw the towel in because you're wasting your energy. So Angel's one of the toughest people I've been around.
So this obviously has been an issue that's been brewing, that LSU thought it was important to talk about it when the season did end. I'm not going to sit here and say that I expected this response because I don't feel like Angel Reese is hated from an overall kind of view. Everyone's going to have haters when you're that rich and that famous and that successful, right? It's just part of it. But I didn't think that was going to be the press conference that we were listening to last night. But once again, it's not my story to tell. It's not my truth. And you had Haley Van Lith feel that way. You had Flau'jae Johnson feel that way. And then coming from the source herself, Angel Reese as well. So I just thought it was eye-opening last night when you did go through that. And you did have to hear that, especially the part where she said, I haven't had a day of peace since winning the championship. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll do a little college football fix from Ohio State to Syracuse. We will be joined by Kyle McCord when we return, quarterback on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Update time. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, we're not even a week into the baseball season, and we've already had a no-hitter. The Yankees, without their Cy Young Award winner, are 5-0, along with the Pirates, and the Tigers also remain unbeaten at 4-0. After getting swept by the Yankees last night, the Astros got their first win of the season on Ronel Blanco's complete game no-hitter, and will try to build on that victory tonight when they continue their series, the Blue Jays, while the Yankees look to make it 6 straight in Arizona against the Diamondbacks, as they send Nestor Cortez to the mound against Cy Young finalist Zach Gallen. Larry Lucchino, who had a big part in the building of Camden Yards and Petco Park and president of the Red Sox for 3 of their championship teams, has died today at the age of 78. Right now in Milwaukee, the unbeaten Brewers at 3-0, hosting the Twins. They are scoreless in the bottom half of the second inning. The West leading Thunder are in Philadelphia tonight, holding a half-game lead over Denver, while Mark Daigneault's team clinched a playoff berth with Sunday's win, and now hoping to take the next step. The defending champs host the Spurs tonight. Minnesota, just a game back, will meet the Rockets. The Mavericks looking for their 8th straight win against the Warriors. They're Dallas currently 5th in the West, just a half game in front of the idle Pelicans. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
We miss college football.
Milrose stands in. He throws into the end zone. He caught it. It's caught by Isaiah Bond in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama.
We can't wait for the 2024 season.
Hands it off to Edwards, who bounce it outside. Donovan 40, Donovan 30. Donovan Edwards is in the clear. His second touchdown run of the ball game. This time from 46 yards. And Michigan has taken a 13-3 lead on the second touchdown of the night from the man who was not tripping.
And we're counting down the days to kick off.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
I said no.
Are we there yet?
What's wrong with your ears?
Here is your college football fix, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
151 days until Syracuse kicks off its football season up against the Ohio Bobcats. Now joining us on a little college football fix on the Zach Gelb Show is a man that played quarterback for Ohio State a year ago, had nearly 3,200 passing yards, 24 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, has since hit the transfer portal, and now will call Syracuse his next home, and that is quarterback Kyle McCord, kind enough to join us on CBS Sports Radio. Kyle, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
I'm good, man. Can't complain.
How do you kind of been acclimating going from Ohio State to now a new home, a new staff, new teammates with the Syracuse Orangemen?
Yeah, the transition's been smooth. I think Coach Brown coming from Georgia, which is obviously another top program, he's running it pretty much the same exact way and holding us to that standard. And the rest of the coaches have all had great experience. So the level of excellence and that standard has kind of stayed that high.
The energy is what stands out to me. Like I knew Fran Brown before a lot of people knew Fran Brown because I'm a Temple graduate, and I know Elijah Robinson as well, who was brought in to be the DC. But the energy of this staff, if I knew what it was years ago, but I'm sure Fran Brown is the same way. How about his energy?
Yeah, I mean, it's off the charts. Extremely genuine dude, and he always brings it every single day. And it's been a lot of competition, and I think that starts with him. I mean, he's going to talk trash and get the guys going, so everyone's kind of rallied around that.
When you look at your transfer portal kind of opportunity that you had to hit this past offseason, when you were leaving Ohio State, there was some speculation it was going to be Nebraska, and then you did wind up with Syracuse. Just take me through that entire process.
Yeah, so I got in that first Monday the portal opened. I really had no idea where I was going to end up, and took some visits. Obviously went to Nebraska first, and then visited Syracuse, and then took a step back and weighed my options, and it just made sense to come here. The staff, the situation that I'd be walking into, so it was just something I couldn't say no to.
Talking to Kyle McCord, who joins us right now with the Syracuse football team. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Individually, how do you look back at your season a year ago at Ohio State?
Yeah, I think I'm extremely grateful for the way it went. A lot of highs, a few lows, some big wins, beating Notre Dame and Penn State, and then obviously not the way we wanted to end the year. But I'm thankful for it. I feel like the growth that I went through in a year was tremendous. I feel like from game 1 to game 12, I got better, played through some injuries and some small stuff like that. So just having that experience under my belt now, I feel like it's huge, and bringing that experience here. And I think I can use everything that I went through last year to catapult me into a great season this year.
When you talk about catapulting yourself into another great season, just how big of a jump do you think you could take, and what have been some of the things you've been working on this offseason?
Yeah, I think you don't know what you don't know. And having 12 games under my belt now, and an offseason where you know what you need to work on, you know what's going to show up in the game, you know what's going to get you better. Just having that under my belt, I think, is huge. And it's an advantage, obviously, I didn't have going into last year, being a first-year starter. And so now having that experience and that knowledge, I feel like I can really take this thing to the next level.
Now, I know that you've talked about your relationship with CJ Stroud on social media. We all saw his incredible rookie season. Just what were you able to take from your time with CJ?
Yeah, I mean, I picked his brain every single day, and seeing the success that he had last year, being a rookie and arguably being a top 5 quarterback already, was no surprise to me. Just the way he approaches the game, and a lot of it, I think, is just his preparation. I mean, he prepared like no other. He's a film junkie, and so just being able to pick his brain and learning under him for 2 years was awesome. And, just getting the small ins and outs of how he sees the game. So I think that helped me last year. And, that door's still open. I hit him up every now and then, just, shooting, whatever. And he's been awesome.
Talking to Kyle McCord now. It's like an interesting line that you got to toe, because you are the quarterback, but you also are new to this program. There's a lot of people that are new to this Syracuse program. How do you guys now work on building chemistry with the program of some of the guys that have been there and now some of the newcomers that have stepped in?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting mix. I think a lot of the times when you get a new head coach, all the veteran guys either that have played there or have had success go on and they leave and they go to another school. But that's not the case here. All the veteran guys, all the leaders from last year's team came back. And then Coach Fran brought in a great portal class as well as some freshmen that are going to play early. And so now I think, especially in the spring, is just getting everybody on the same page, gelling as a team. And I think we've been doing a good job. We're ahead of schedule than what I anticipated and where we'd be. And so now it's just all about using that momentum and continuing to roll and get this thing going.
When you learn the offense and you get a better understanding of it and you build those relationships, what can Syracuse football fans expect on the offensive side of the ball this year?
Yeah, I think we have a real possibility to be explosive. Obviously, bringing guys back like Rhonda Gatson and LaQuinn Allen and Dan Villari and a few of the other receivers, and then bringing in some portal guys like Jackson Meeks and Zeke Haynes from Georgia. I really think, the sky's the limit. And Coach Nixon obviously is the OC, and he's been doing a great job, been in the NFL for some years. And when he was in college, had some really explosive offenses. So we're all excited. And I think now it's just putting the pieces in the right spot and, putting guys in a position to have success.
Talking to Kyle McCord, the new Syracuse quarterback. So many people speculated on why you hit the transfer portal. What was the truth on why you elected to leave Ohio State?
Yeah, I think obviously a lot goes into that. It wasn't on my mind during the season, but once the season ended, sat down and, had some conversation about what the future looked like. And, they had a vision on what they wanted to do. And I think I had a vision on what I wanted to do. And, ultimately it didn't pair up. And I think that's just the reality and the business of college football. And, I obviously was in a good situation last year and, didn't necessarily want to leave. But then once I had those conversations and kind of weighed my options, I felt like it was best for me to go elsewhere. And there's no hard feelings there. I still have a lot of good connections and relationships there. So I wish them all the success this season. But just for me and my career, I felt like the best thing for me to do to really grow as a player was, go to the portal and go elsewhere.
What would have needed to happen to have you stay with the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's one thing in particular. They obviously went out and got a transfer quarterback, and that was definitely part of the conversation that we had. And, they felt like it was best to turn the page. And, ultimately, I guess, we'll see in the fall if that was the right decision or not. But like I said, I have no ill will. I think that's just the reality of college football nowadays. And, I think it all worked out, and I landed on my feet at a great school in a great situation. So I couldn't have asked for it to play out any different.
Let me ask you about Marvin Harrison Jr. He was the best wide receiver to me in the country last year. Now you hear maybe Malik Neighbors may jump him in the draft. I don't care that he didn't participate in the pro day. I don't care that he barely participated in the combine. What's an NFL team getting in your former teammate in Marvin Harrison Jr. whenever you hear his name called?
Yeah, I think you can turn the film and see how good of a player he was. I think every opportunity that he got to step on the field in his past 3 years there, he's dominated. And even this year, coming off a monster season in 2022, teams knew where we were going to try to get the ball, and that was to 18. They tried to double him and, all sorts of ways to stop him, and they couldn't. And he still had a monster year. And so playing with him the past 6 years, 3 years in high school and then 3 years in college, and just seeing the growth that he's made, there's no doubt in my mind that he's the best receiver in this class.
Getting back to your new team, you said that you feel like the sky is the limit. Why should people buy in to what's getting built right now and maybe is being kept a secret with the Syracuse football team?
I think you look at the people. I think a great coaching staff has been built here. Guys with a lot of experience, guys who've been in the NFL, have been at other successful college schools. And then the players that we brought in, I think, like I said, anytime you get a new head coach, usually the best players leave and go to a different school, but all the best players came back. And then the portal class we brought in, I think is extremely strong, and guys that have experience, guys that played a lot of football. And I think when you mix that with, a lot of guys who are hungry too, to go out and prove themselves right, that's a mix for success.
What do you hope to get out of this experience? Just wondering at Syracuse, Kyle.
Yeah, I think already it's off to a great start. I want to come here and win as many games as possible and put the best product of not only myself, but the team out on the field. And I feel like the coaches have definitely been allowing me to do that. Coach Nixon's been great having open dialogue about what I like in the offense. And I think at the end of the day, everybody is here to win, and everybody's here to produce, and then ultimately, get to the next level, which is the NFL.
Well, Kyle, hey, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and good luck on this new chapter at Syracuse.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Kyle McCord, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. So appreciate his time, and he was a big-time talked-about player at Ohio State last year. And, right, they had good moments against Notre Dame. They had a good moment against Penn State. But where that school is at right now from where they were, they have fallen off, where they're still one of the best teams in the country, right? When you look at the rankings and you see the way that they're talked about. However, against Michigan, had the 2 interceptions. And that's how you get remembered. And I was trying to get some clarity on why the divorce happened between him and Ohio State. They did bring another quarterback in, and it just seemed like it wasn't going to work out there anymore. So that's why I asked him what would it have really to take for him to be back at Ohio State. And when he says there's, not one thing, there's nothing I could really infer from that. But it's now a new opportunity where he lands in Syracuse, and it is a smaller stage. You're still in the ACC, right? Solid football conference, but less attention on the Syracuse program. You get a coach who, Fran Brown, I hope that dude wins. That dude is just full of energy. And you heard his introductory press conference. We played a little bit of it when he got introduced as the coach of Syracuse. That's just a dude that is a true leader of men. And he's a guy that's very easy to root for. And I'm elated that him and Elijah Robinson are back on the same coaching staff. But now it's a redemption moment for Kyle McCord because he was supposed to be the guy at Ohio State. It didn't work out. And now you're off to the next stop. And I'm curious how we're going to be talking about Kyle McCord a year from now. Because now you're kind of on the back burner. Now you're out of the spotlight. And it's how do you get yourself back into the spotlight and back into the conversation where the standard just naturally is lower. And I know the coaching staff won't like me saying this, but the standard is lower at a Syracuse compared to where it's at with what you could accomplish at Ohio State. So I wish him nothing but the best. And the transfer portal process for him was interesting. I thought he was going to Nebraska, and then the whole Dylan Raiola recruitment that got reopened where he's supposed to go to Georgia and then winds up at Nebraska. We know Dylan's going to be the guy there. So you go to a place where you could play in Syracuse, and I thought it was best for both parties. It was good for Fran Brown. It was good for Syracuse, right? Brings a bigger feel to the quarterback position, and for Kyle, it takes some of the pressure off of him, and we'll see if he could get to a level where he could be a dominant player and start to change the narrative that occurred since his departure from Ohio State. So appreciate his time and appreciate him joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Okay, we will take a timeout. When we come on back, we'll go back to Caitlin Clark. And we've been talking a lot these past 3 weeks on why the women's tournament has been better than the men's tournament. We'll delve more into that and give you the reason why it's been better and why the women's game has more stars and more players that you could recognize than the men's game. And also, coming up 25 minutes from now, UConn star Donovan Clingan will join us as the Huskies are going back to the men's Final Four trying to defend their national championship.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Last night, we saw a sensational moment in sports. Where I said earlier, Caitlin Clark is the female version of Steph Curry, and she also displayed Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes-like tendencies on the basketball court last night, and even had the late, great Kobe Bryant kind of instinct and mentality when the game did end, and she made sure to say the job's not done yet. But we all know the magnitude of that game. And I don't want to compare it, obviously, to 1980, But in 1980 with the U.S. men's hockey team, where they beat the Soviets, that's the most talked about moment from that run. There was still a game, though, after that secured the gold medal for the USA hockey team against Finland. Now, you always remember, right, Herb Brooks, and it was once again displayed in the movie Miracle, where he said, if you lose this game, you'll take this one to your grave. Because the moment of elation and the moment of euphoria and the moment that will always be engraved in our memories was obviously the victory up against the Soviets. But in this run with Iowa, and they're on right now, that's why you had Kim Mulkey say it feels like this game should be at the Final Four, because it was at the national championship game a year ago. Now, there was reasons early on to doubt LSU. And with the Tigers, right, even Angel Reese was benched to start the season. You know, they had some losses. And then they found a way to get it together. And I think the committee, they won't say this, but I don't think they wanted to roll the dice with how much extra attention it would bring. And I believe that it was done on purpose to make sure that game wasn't at the Final Four. Because when you get to the Elite Eight, which you saw last night, and it's like, oh, LSU and Iowa's there. Everyone's sitting there and saying, well, why isn't this game being played a week from now, or on the weekend or on Friday at the Final Four? It's easy to say then, but it's clear that the committee had some doubt with LSU, and they didn't want to roll the dice with how many other great stories there are with USC, who their run came to an end last night with Juju Watkins. You have Paige Buckets getting back to form with UConn after the injury. We know South Carolina is undefeated with Dawn Staley. NC State did wind up getting to the men's and women's Final Four. So I'm sure people probably will say, oh, well, LSU should have been where NC State was. But then still, you would have had to have had LSU beat South Carolina to get to the championship game because they were on opposite sides of the bracket. So I think the committee did this on purpose, where they knew the magnitude of this game and how this would be the most important game of the tournament. So, yes, ideally, you'd rather have it at the Final Four. Or, in the perfect world, you'd rather have it in the championship game again. But you don't want to run that risk of not getting it. So, to just survive a few rounds and not ask anything more, to then have a spot to play and get into the Final Four, it doesn't have the same kind of feel as if it was in the Final Four, the championship game, just with the magnitude, but it's still something that's pretty significant. And even though it was talked about leading up to the game with Kim Mulkey saying this should be at the Final Four, it's not like anyone last night said, you know what, I'm not going to tune into Iowa and LSU because it's not at the Final Four. That was a huge event last night. That event was enormous, where there's never really a time that I can recall where it felt like the entire world was watching a women's basketball game. And I know that there was nothing really else on last night, right? You had hockey on, you had NBA regular season on, but there was no men's tournament game. But even if you had men's tournament on last night, I would have preferred to watch the women's tournament. And that's just not with one isolated game. Like, yes, Iowa and LSU, it does help with the storylines with Kim Mulkey, and you have Angel Reese, and you also have, in addition to that, Caitlin Clark, and that just phenomenal story and what she was able to do last night. Not only the 41 points, but the big difference of the game was the 12 assists and the 9 3-pointers. But LSU is a more well-rounded team than Iowa. And you had two other players for Iowa last night get into double figures. And that was the reason why they ended up winning the game, because you knew Caitlin Clark was going to get hers. It was, can anyone else get there? And they were able to have two other teammates that did pop off last night. So when you look back at that matchup and people say, oh, yeah, you wish it was at the Final Four, the committee wanted to guarantee that we were going to see that. And for Iowa, the job's not done yet. Like, you beat LSU. You lost to them last year in a championship game. You go on to win the championship. This would still be probably the most memorable part of the run, just from a broad sense, and what I mean by that is, like, I'm not a P1 women's college basketball fan. You know, most of us watching last night haven't watched the entirety of the season. And I understand there's been record-breaking attendance, record-breaking viewership, and all that. But a lot of people listening to this show right now don't religiously follow women's college basketball. So for us, when we look things in a very vague sense, there is no bigger game from a feel standpoint in women's college basketball this year than Iowa and LSU. Because of how many people watched it last year, and then we saw it once again this year with two enormous stars in Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. But with that being said, Iowa now goes up against UConn in the next round. And you have someone who was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark, right? In terms of national recognition. Like 2-3 years ago, Paige Beckers, that nickname Paige Buckets, was talked about nonstop. And then the unfortunate injury, and she had to miss all of last season. So you go from that to now Paige is having her return, and Caitlin got her redemption last night, and you have the legendary UConn program coached by Gino Auriemma, and he's got, his star player back. And that's going to, just from the way both of those women played last night, to now we get to see it go from how hyped it was for not only Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, but then in addition to that, you had Juju Watkins go up against Paige Beckers, to now then see the next game be Iowa against UConn. That's going to be phenomenal. And then think about this. If Caitlin Clark wins, in all likelihood, no disrespect to NC State, they're going to get South Carolina. So yes, last night was the night, but it's not like the story ends there. And that's the beauty of women's college basketball right now. It's not just Caitlin Clark. We've talked about Angel Reese at LSU. We've talked about Juju at USC. We've talked about Paige at UConn. And then the program right now in South Carolina, who is undefeated. It gives you an incentive to continue to watch. Because if it was just Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, there'd be no reason to watch. But to have this many stars all within the same age playing right now and rivalries being built and multiple years of storylines, that's what gets us to watch this women's tournament. And the men's tournament really doesn't have that. Where, yes, Donovan Clingan is going to join us in a bit. He's been there for 2 years. DJ Burns had to go from Tennessee to Winthrop and now is breaking out with NC State. Zach Edey has been a consistent story at Purdue. Like, there's stories there, but they pale in comparison to the women's game. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's because of NIL and women's basketball. Like, the salaries are not, I don't want to say they're not great, to a regular person, like to most of us regular people, making, the most the women's college basketball player, women's professional basketball player makes in the WNBA is like $250,000. Caitlin Clark next year is going to make $75,000 in all likelihood as her base salary. So that's still, I don't want to be disrespectful. That's still good money. But in the men's game, you're making a whole lot more. So if you go to college and you want to get out of college as quick as possible, you don't see that continuity a lot in the men's game. They're trying to bring it back. Like everyone says about Kentucky, oh, maybe they should go away from one and dones. And then you're not going to get as many stars. And you want to then have Cal develop players for 3 or 4 years? I don't know if that's necessarily going to work. But here's the thing that no one's talking about. So the NBA, you just have to be 1 year out of high school. So that's where the term one and done happens. You go to college for 1 year and then you're done and you're off to the pros. There was a time you could just go right out of high school. But in women's college basketball, you have to be 22 years old to enter the WNBA, which I did not know that. And once again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert about something that I'm not. But that's a big reason. It's the system and the structure. Like if that rule was there and they said, okay, you don't have to be one and done anymore in men's college basketball, you can't enter the NBA until you're 22, there would be more continuity because that's the way the system is designed. And in the women's game, you have to be bare minimum 22 before you could declare to go pro. Now, I'm not going to dismiss the name, image, and likeness part of it because Caitlin Clark probably makes more this year at Iowa than what she's going to make in her base salary next year in the WNBA. It will still come with a tremendous amount of marketing opportunities. And, right, the big three already offered her a $5 million contract a year, which he's not going to take. So NIL does play a factor, but she wasn't allowed to declare for the WNBA until this year. Now, she could have came back for another season. She elected not to. Angel Reese has the decision to make as well. But that's a big part of this that isn't talked about. So that's why I think right now, because, right, a lot of us parachute in to the college basketball season. The regular season doesn't get a ton of coverage. You know, there'll be moments where you talked about it here or there. But even though you're in a professional sports world where it's part of the business, you see a lot more continuity, obviously, in professional sports. So then you expect that for someone that parachutes in college sports. And in the men's game, you've had bigger coaches retire like Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, who were the face of college basketball. And those are the faces of college basketball for so long. And now it's like, oh, we don't have that many men's stars. Because if you really are a big-time star in college basketball, the most you're staying is 2 years. Like Donovan Clingan's going to join us coming up in about 8 minutes or so. And when he joins us, like, I'll ask him, is this actually it at UConn? I have, when I ask him that, I know he's going to say, you know, I haven't made the decision yet. I'm focused on what's next, blah, 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 blah. And I'm focused on only the tournament. But he's absolutely going to the NBA after this year because now he's getting projected as a top 10, top 5 pick. So when you get projected that way and there's that much more money to make in the NBA, you're going to take that opportunity. If you're not, though, a projected lottery pick, you may want to stay in college because you'll get more NIL money. But the system in men's basketball compared to women's basketball is one and done in the men's game. You got to be 22 to go pro and enter the WNBA draft. And that's something that's not talked about a lot. And quite frankly, I didn't know that until a few days ago. When we were talking about it around the office, like, what's the biggest difference between the men's and the women's game? And people say, oh, the stars and the star presence in the women's game. And maybe it's lightning in the bottle in the women's game. But you have a run now where Paige and Angel and Caitlin are all 21, 22. And then you have a younger star who we got to see a little bit last night in Juju. And it's, can you find that next wave of stars, assuming Angel goes to the pros, Caitlin we already know is going to the pros, and, you know, Paige with her future as well. And ultimately, when you have stars and you can build continuity with those stars and storylines, that's what draws a big audience in sports. That's what gets us to the TV set. And years ago, right, people would say, oh, it's women's basketball, I'm not going to watch. But the star presence has been that deep and has been that headline kind of worthy and headline catchy that it has drawn a lot of us that wouldn't watch to watch. But that age difference is big. And I know now people are going to say, well, should the NBA maybe make their age limit a little bit later? I don't think so. Like, I think you should have the power to choose when you want to go professional. Like, I don't love, it's better for us as a viewer and a consumer, I don't love that the WNBA makes you be 22. I don't. But it's been successful for the sport of women's basketball, as you've seen in the last 2-3 years. But I'm not going to sit here and say the NBA needs to up their age requirement as well. Donovan Clingan's going to join us next. UConn, in the women's side, is off to the Final Four. In the men's side, we know they're also off to the Final Four. The defending national champs will be going up against Alabama Saturday evening.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
We continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS. We continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
4 minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
We continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The defending champion UConn Huskies are going back to the Final Four. They'll do battle in Phoenix, Arizona, coming up Saturday evening up against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And now joining us is a star player from the UConn Huskies, their big man in Donovan Clingan. Donovan, always appreciate the time. Congratulations. Thanks so much. And how have things been?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Things have been great. Got back to the Final Four, back in the gym, practicing with the guys, trying to, prepare for some high-level competition and, just get ready to go to Phoenix.
How do you process going back to the Final Four when reality starts to set in? That's a goal of your guys all throughout the season, was to get back to this spot to have a legit chance to defend your title. Now that it's here, just how do you kind of look back and process on the journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's unreal. Every basketball player as a little kid dreams of, playing in the Final Four, playing in that national championship game. And, to make it to the Final Four 2 years in a row, it's a, dream come true. Just to perform at the highest stage of, the highest level of, basketball that you could perform at. College is another level, and just the Final Four, the competition, the teams you're playing, when you get out there, the atmosphere, everything that goes on, the experience, you remember these moments forever, and but you really just you don't take anything for granted. We're all going to be hungry. We're all going to be, wanting to win. And, that's just one thing that's special about this team is, this team will never get complacent, and we're going to go out there and give everything we got.
It doesn't matter what school you play for. It doesn't matter where you cut down those nets when you're able to do that and you're going to the Final Four. It's very special and surreal. You being someone, though, that grew up in Connecticut and grew up cheering for the UConn Huskies, now to play for them and also to be in TD Garden after an Elite Eight victory, and you're cutting down the nets and you were a Celtics fan growing up as a kid. I see the smile on your face. That just had to be a little extra special, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you grow up in Connecticut, you're born and raised, and when you get to college and you throw that Connecticut jersey on across your chest every day, it means a lot to me. Just to represent the state at, a high level. And, this is such a historic program that's, made a lot of history. So just trying to insert myself into that history. And, that's what everyone on this team's doing. We're just trying to become a part of history, do something special. But, for me to be from Connecticut and be able to, represent the state at a high level means a lot. And, like you said, cut down the nets at TD Garden. I never thought that would happen. That's a dream come true for sure. There's a lot of legends that have walked that floor, walked those hallways. I'm extremely blessed for the opportunities I've been given to, playing here at UConn. I'm not gonna take this one coming for granted.
Donovan Clingan is my guest right now. UConn back in the Final Four. The defending champions will go up against Alabama on Saturday for a trip to go to the national championship game on Monday night. It feels like, Donovan, this group is as hungrier as ever. Sometimes when you win a championship, I know there's so much change in the sport, some complacency sets in. Why is this group just as hungry, if not even hungrier than the group from a year ago?
Really just for the returners, that feeling of winning last year was the best feeling that you could ever, you could ever feel of, playing this sport. It was just such an unreal experience. And, if you want to be great, if you want to go on to do great things, you got to fall in love with winning. You can't get, happy with where you're at. You got to keep on wanting more, keep on trying to achieve more. And, I feel like that's one thing with these returners that really try to do, but, bringing in these new guys, the freshmen, the transfer, really just trying to do it for them and, get them to experience what, winning at the highest level is like. And, like I said, trying to insert ourselves in history. It's a special place to be. We got a special coaching staff. Coach Shirley really instills, that hard work into us, and that hunger of just keep on wanting to win. He really doesn't take it easy on us. He always pushing us, even though we've done some great things this year. We all realize what our ultimate goal is.
I absolutely love Coach Danny Hurley, but what was your first impression of him when you first got to meet him back in the recruiting process?
Yeah, I watched a lot of games, came to a lot of games throughout the recruiting process. You just see his energy and his love for the players. I used to go watch a bunch of practices, and, I'd be like, oh, wow. I mean, this seems brutal. He's yelling at you. He's pushing you to a level that, people have never been pushed to. And, I feel like that's something I needed was, being pushed to that, that next level. And, coach is doing that. But even though it may not seem it, with all the yelling he does, but he really loves us. He really wants what's best for us. And he's just, he's putting us in the best position to be as successful as possible. And, I give Coach a lot of credit because, we got a lot of talented players on this team, who could go score the ball, at will. But, he always puts people in the best position to, succeed at a high level as a team. And, he just wants to win. And, I would go to war with him every single day.
It's one thing to go on a 10-0 run. It's one thing to go on like a 15-0 run, but a 30-0 run is just out of this world. Just how do you even describe? I know you guys are great. You're the team to beat in the tournament, but how do you even describe how that was possible that you guys were able to go on a 30-0 run?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like none of us really had any idea what the run actually was. We were just having so much fun out there. this team just loves playing for the guy next to us. We love playing, to see other people succeed. We're not worried about our own stats. We're not worried about, how many points we finish with at the end of the game. We're just worried about, as long as UConn wins, everyone's happy. And we were just going through that run, playing the best defense that we possibly can, and just sharing the ball on offense, finding the open man, and making the right reads. And that's just one thing that we were trying to do to break the other team's will, and we just kept trying to put them away. Even though we were on a 12-0 run at some point, we didn't take the foot off the gas. We kept going because we're trying to end team season at the Elite Eight, and teams aren't just going to walk away. They're not going to just give up. So, we really got to try to put teams away. And I feel like, that's what we tried to do. And, our defensive intensity and our defense was unreal.
This group, they make it look so easy. I know it's not actually easy and there's a lot of work that gets put into it. But why does this group from afar seem like you guys don't fall to the pressure of everyone say, okay, we're gunning, we're going to give UConn our best effort because we know they're the team to beat in this tourney?
Yeah, no one practices like we do. Our intensity in practice, the way we practice, how long we practice for, and it's harder than the games. It's more than the games, and I feel like that prepares us to play at any length of game, any type of game, and really takes the pressure off of us. Coach puts us in positions throughout practice that we feel pressure to try to win drills, try to win segments of a live, or free throw games, or just like little stuff. He builds that pressure into practice, so when it comes to the game, it's just like it's natural, and we're not over working ourselves up and being stressed out.
Donovan Clingan here with us. How about the individual attention you receive? We see you now getting projected as a top 5 pick in the upcoming NBA draft. We know that you're the star player of this team. From last year to this year, it's been a big jump, and there's more expected out of you. How have you been dealing with that individual attention?
Yeah, I just block it out. I realize what's at stake. I realize what's in front of me right now, and I try to tell myself you only could control what's in front of you right now. And that's 2 games hopefully this weekend, and Saturday and Monday. Really not thinking about what's next, and not thinking about the future. It's really just what can I control right now. Don't listen to the outside noise of what people are saying. And really just work your butt off to achieve high things. People could say whatever they want, but you really got to put the work in to try to make it to where you want to make it to. And really for me, I'm just worried about UConn. I'm just worried about this team, and I'm just worried about going out there and trying to compete for a national championship.
I respect that answer, but I have to ask it. When you get set for the Final Four, do you feel like this is your last run at UConn with all the NBA speculation?
No, like I said, I really haven't thought about next year. Thought about what I plan on doing. And I love UConn so much. I love being here. I love the staff. I love the culture. Walking this building every day puts a smile on my face. So whenever the time does come, it's going to be hard to say, goodbye to this program. But, I'll be, I don't see, I'm not thinking about next year. I'm not thinking about the future right now.
Let me ask you about Alabama, the opponent, talking about the future. There's what is next for you. We all know that you two both have incredible offenses. Defense is going to win this game. How do you guys lock down defensively to try to contain this juggernaut that is Alabama?
Yeah, they're a great offensive team. They shoot the ball at a high level. We just got to, stick to our script, stick to what we've been doing, and, just raise our intensity to another level because, the level we're playing at and, where we're playing at. We're playing in the Final Four game, against a really good Alabama team. So, they're going to raise their level. We have to raise our level, and we just got to guard. They're very, they move the ball well on offense. They make a lot of threes. They get to the rim. And they're well coached, so we just got to really put the work in this week in practice, lock into the film, lock into the scout, and, just be ready to attack this matchup.
For so many years in college basketball, Donovan Clingan, people have said guards win this time of the year, backcourts win this time of the year. You've been dominated at UConn as a big man. We've seen what DJ Burns has done, another big man at NC State. We know the biggest guy, Zach Edey, has been on some run at Purdue. What does it say about the big man right now in this sport?
Yeah, I feel like, big men have a big impact on, how teams play and how the game's, going. They have a big impact in the paint on offense. You know, the big men are the ones setting the screens to get the guards open. You know, they're rebounding the ball, blocking shots, defending the rim, defending the paint. You know, and you know, we just try to be as dominant as possible. You know, for me personally, you know, I can't speak on, you know, everyone else's behalf, but for me personally, I just go into the game every game of like, all right, how am I going to protect the rim at a high level? How am I going to rebound at a high level? And how am I going to, you know, help my team win any way possible? You know, whether that's 15 rebounds, 10 blocks, and 0 points, you know, I'm willing to do that. You know, for me, it's just trying to have an impact on the game and, you know, give the other team different looks, you know, between me and Samson about, you know, different offensive looks, different defensive looks. And, you know, really just as bigs, you know, we're just trying to dominate the game and, you know, dominate and impact our team any way we can.
Before I let you run, you know this is nothing new. At UConn, the men's dominate, and then the women's team also dominates as well. You guys are both now in the Final Four. Just to see Paige overcome all the adversity and UConn punch that ticket last night to another Final Four on the women's side, just what did that mean to you?
I mean, it's really cool. You know, I'm happy for them. You know, I obviously, you know, Paige last year didn't have the years, you know, she expected. You know, and, you know, through last year and this summer, you know, I've seen all the work she's put in and, you know, how much time she spends in the facility trying to get better. And that whole team, you know, they've had a rough year with injuries and, you know, everything that's happened on their side. You know, so just to see them, you know, succeeding at a high level and, you know, performing at the best of the best and, you know, make it to the Final Four, you know, I'm happy for them. I'm rooting for them. And, you know, I hope they go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, how much have you been paying attention to the women's tournament with Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese? You have Dawn Staley and the undefeated South Carolina team. Have you been paying a lot of attention to it?
Yeah, I've been watching the games. You know, last night was a great night for, you know, the sport. You know, watching Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, you know, battle that one out. That was a good game. And, you know, watching Juju and Paige in that second game, you know, it was, you know, it's great. Been definitely tuning in.
Yeah, last thing I'll ask you, Donovan Clingan. We always say this, that this UConn team feels like it's better than last year's UConn team. What do you think about that since you're on both those teams?
Yeah, it's hard. You know, I feel like, you know, it's a whole group of different players that play totally different. You know, we're still, you know, coached the same, you know, intensity-wise and, you know, how hard we play and what we're doing on the floor. You know, last year I feel like, you know, just certain positions, there was, you know, just different looks. You know, sometimes last year we were a little bit better at putting teams away, you know, towards the end of games. And, you know, right now this year's team is, you know, doing a better job at that. You know, but it's really hard to say, you know, which team's better. You know, they're both two teams that were filled with a bunch of special guys. And, you know, I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate the time. Good luck coming up this weekend. Thanks so much and appreciate you coming on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
There he is, Donovan Clingan from UConn, kind enough to join us as we do have our men's Final Four set. We're going to try to travel to Phoenix, Arizona tomorrow. We're having some weather issues here in New York where it never stops raining. But if we get there, we'll be live in Phoenix tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. We'll have two shows from Radio Row Thursday and Friday as we get you set for the men's Final Four with UConn going up against Alabama. And you do have on the other side of the bracket NC State with DJ Burns going up against Zach Edey of Purdue. We'll end the show next with a little news brief. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. But let's get to the latest CBS Sports Radio update first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, there are still free agents available, and Julian Blackmon was on the market for a while, but no longer, as he's returning to the Colts on a one-year deal. There are 4 unbeaten teams in the major leagues. The Brewers are 1 after sweeping the Mets on their first series. Right now, they are playing their home opener and currently lead the Twins 3-1 in the top of the 6th. Christian Yelich with a home run in this one, his second of this young season for the Brewers. The other unbeatens, the Yankees, 5-0 in the American League. They look to go for their 6th straight tonight in Phoenix, while the Tigers are in New York, adding to the Mets' woes last night by winning their 4th in a row and dropping the Mets to 0-4. Rangers third baseman Josh Young had surgery on his wrist after being hit by a pitch last night. He is expected to miss 6 weeks. Larry Lucchino, who coined the phrase the evil empire when talking about the Yankees, has died at the age of 78. Lucchino brought Theo Epstein to Boston when he joined the Red Sox. The team won 3 World Series on his watch. He also had a significant hand in building Camden Yards and Petco Park and the renovation of Fenway. I'm Rich Ackerman.
What's going on, everybody? This is JR. Join me here on CBS Sports Radio for the JR Sport Brief. Weeknights, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, here we go. CBS Sports Radio. It is the Zach Gelb Show. Final segment of the day. We got to end the show out in style. We got to update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. Stuart Kovacs, let's get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Caitlin Clark, and some more Caitlin Clark. Let's hear people talk about Caitlin Clark. We start off with Kim Mulkey, the head coach of the LSU Tigers, who commented on Caitlin Clark's sensational performance as her Tigers are going home and the Hawkeyes of Iowa are advancing to the Final Four.
You got to guard her. Nobody else seems to be able to guard her. We didn't even guard her last year when we beat them. She's just a generational player, and she just makes everybody around her better. That's what the great ones do. What did I say to her? I said, I sure am glad you leaving. I said, girl, you something else. Never seen anything like it.
It's almost the way that we talk about Nikola Jokic, where it's like, he's going to get his, and she is going to get hers. But it's, can you stop the others? And the part with Nikola Jokic is, if you try to let him get his, he'll throw 45 points. But the problem with Nikola Jokic, if you try to take away, like his individual abilities, he'll thrive more off passing the basketball. With her, it was always, will the teammates show up? Because last year, even Kim Mulkey said it, they didn't really stop her in the national championship game. And they didn't stop her the other night, but she was able to get 12 assists last night. And even though it was 40 points and 9 3-pointers, the 12 assists, which stood out to be the most, because you had two other players that went for double digits. And going into that game, and everyone was on Iowa, and the line was moving in big favor of Iowa. It moved a full point from when we got off the air yesterday until the ball was tipped, and we got off the air at 6 p.m. Eastern, and the ball was thrown up in the air at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. But, you see just the production around her. We didn't know if that was going to work last night. And for LSU, they're a well-rounded team, but it didn't matter because no one was beating Caitlin Clark plus others helping out Caitlin Clark for Iowa. I do find it funny, though, Stu, how Kim Mulkey was just like, there's really nothing that you could do. And she's 100% right. And not only that, Haley Van Lith, I felt bad for her last night. Because that was the one problem with Kim Mulkey in the game. They kept her on Caitlin Clark way too long. Caitlin Clark is 6 feet tall. Haley Van Lith is 5'7". There were moments in the game where Haley was in great position on Caitlin Clark. You couldn't play better defense. But when there is a difference of 3 inches in height, what are you supposed to do? Or more than 3 inches, in height. What the heck are you supposed to do? 5'7" against 6 foot. We're talking about almost a 5-inch difference there. There is nothing that could have been done last night, and there's nothing Haley Van Lith could have done better. And you're almost like, well, why didn't Flau'jae Johnson get on her more? Why didn't Kim Mulkey put Flau'jae on Caitlin Clark more? It was almost that they said, all right, let's have Haley, who we know is an energizer. like a big energizer type of player. Let's have her just always be on Caitlin Clark, even if she can't block Caitlin Clark and really contest her shot that much. And then our other players, let's not have them exert their energy in trying to defend Caitlin Clark because there was no answer to defend Caitlin Clark. Let's listen up to Haley Van Lith on Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin's very skilled. She's a great player. She hit some tough shots, and there's not a whole lot you can do about some of the threes she hit. And I think, her role, or the team around her that plays a role, they did a good job of executing their role. So, ultimately they played better than us, and that's what it was.
And the moment I felt bad for her, and I know we all love the sensation that is of Caitlin Clark, where she looks like she's Steph Curry with the three-point ability. She has that killer instinct like a Tom Brady and a Patrick Mahomes. She has that mentality of the late, great Kobe Bryant. Job's not done yet. But I felt bad for Haley Van Lith last night because there was one moment where she kind of gave the Jordan shrug, but it wasn't the way that Jordan meant it, like, oh, you can't stop me. She said, there's nothing else I could do. I am 5'7", she's 6 foot. There's nothing else that I could do. What's more believable, by the way, Stu? Because I don't think Haley Van Lith is actually 5'7". I think she's shorter. The listed weight of DJ Burns being 275 pounds or Haley Van Lith being 5'7". What do you think is more true to scale?
Wow, I would say neither, but I'd say Haley being 5. I mean, I don't believe either, but I'd say Haley's probably a more believable one.
Like she's probably 5'6".
Yeah.
Maybe 5'5". I don't know if she's 5'5", but probably 5. So you're embellishing an inch.
Yeah.
DJ Burns, no
more
offense,
than a few pounds. Yes.
He's got to be like 325, I would say.
I would think so. Definitely a 3 in front of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Probably, like you said, probably closer to 325.
I still can't believe Rich Eisen. Did you see this clip on social media? Rich Eisen was interviewing DJ Burns, and he's like, when did you really, round out? And he's basically saying, when did you put on the weight? Like, when did you get big? And DJ Burns just looked at him in DJ Burns fashion and was just like, excuse me, sir? He dropped his head and raised the eyebrows. He was like, excuse me? Are we really doing this? You basically, you call me fat? And I will not allow any fat shaming of DJ Burns. All right? I am the police of fat shaming here on CBS Sports Radio. I didn't like when DA called Mraz fat. I didn't like when Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson called Zion Williamson fat. And I didn't like it when Rich Eisen called DJ Burns fat as well. Even though we just said what's more true to scale, DJ Burns being 275 pounds or Haley Van Lith being 5'7". But I'm a big fella. So big fella to big fella, we could talk about each other's weight. When you get those pesky folks just chiming into the conversation, we don't allow pesky people to talk about us larger folks. Let's go to Gino Auriemma and Caitlin Clark.
I hope Caitlin Clark had a personal agenda against LSU. And I know there's nothing personal between me and her, so I don't need to be seeing her drop 50 on us next weekend, So I love her. I think she's the best player. Forget I ever said Paige is the best player in the country. I think she's the best player of all time. I don't know whoever said that I said that Paige is the best player in the country.
And that's Gino knowing, man, anything that I've said in the past, and also the fact that he barely even recruited her, never had a conversation when she wanted to go to UConn, she's going to use that as motivation. Now, I don't want to be a casual here. Let me just point out, UConn is 2-0 going up against Caitlin Clark. This, honestly, I can't wait to watch this game later in the week. Just like how I couldn't wait to watch this Iowa-LSU game. And I think it's going to be phenomenal. But this journey, if she's able to win 2 more games, Caitlin Clark, we're talking about an all-time great run. From the LSU game to then potentially beating UConn, and then after that, potentially South Carolina, man, that would be magnificent. Let's go to Victor Wembanyama. He was asked if he was surprised about getting fined for throwing the ball into the crowd.
Surprised. Let's say when I threw the ball, I thought maybe, I remember players being fined for this, but it was always in they threw it always in a bad way, I threw it not, to make some guys' day, but it's No, it's funny. It's just funny, you know.
While the ball's in the air, you're thinking, oh no, that might be $25,000.
Yeah, kind of. But after that, I was like, no, that's fine. Like I threw it to please somebody. It's not like I'm trying to hurt or
throwing it at somebody.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah.
They don't care about intent, I guess, on that.
Apparently.
This is what happens now. Like Wembanyama beats the Knicks. They're at home. He throws the ball into the stands and he gets fined $25,000. Like, if he did it in a malicious way, okay, fine. But that was just fun. You win the game, you throw the ball in the stands. I know we've seen this before in the NFL. Anytime a player punts a ball into the stands and they throw the ball into the stands after scoring a touchdown, the No Fun League reigns supreme and they find the players. But the only reason to watch the Spurs is to see Victor Wembanyama. You're really fining him $25,000? Just ridiculous. Let's hear the play-by-play last night of a no-hitter for the Houston Astros. Here's Todd Callis.
Ground ball. Dubon throws to first. No-hitter! Ronald Blanco in his 8th career start. The 30-year-old makes magic on April Fool's Day.
Great call. Great moment for Ronald Blanco. But, Stu, that's a bad sign for Major League Baseball. That we have gone through a show of 3 hours, and with like a minute remaining in the show, it's the first mention of the no-hitter outside of Axe updates. Just kind of shows you how baseball in the regular season, it's like, okay, just get me to the postseason. Baseball was my first true love, right? But just the national appeal of baseball just is not there anymore.
It's also so many no-hitters now to where, like, you get multiple
Watered
ones
down.
a year. I feel like they're
I still
watered
think
down.
It's unique.
If it's a perfect game, I think it would get a lot more praise. But to your point, yeah, we're barely talking about it on the network.
Yeah, and we talked about it before. Like, who's the best women's basketball player? Caitlin Clark. Who's the best NBA player? People will say, there's a bunch of different answers. LeBron, Joker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry. You go on and on and on. But at least you know a bunch, right? A bunch of recognizable stars. Best NHL player, Connor McDavid. Best NFL player right now, Patrick Mahomes. You get to the MLB, it's like, okay, it's Ohtani, but now there's that gambling situation. Mike Trout never makes the playoffs. Mookie Betts is sensational. But there's no one that really draws in the national audience. It was Ohtani, and I still think it is Ohtani, but him going to the Dodgers, even though we want to see him in the postseason, it does water it down. It's like, okay, just wait till we get to the postseason with Shohei Ohtani. And we don't know what's going to happen with the gambling, and now he's not pitching because of the Tommy John. So it takes away the one-on-one factor a little bit for now with Shohei Ohtani. Alrighty, that's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Fun, action-packed show today. Hopefully we'll be in Arizona tomorrow, as it's going to be a very interesting travel plan. But God willing, we are there. We'll be live in a Arizona affiliate in Phoenix tomorrow. And then Thursday, Friday, we will be live on Radio Row for the men's Final Four, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. Big thanks to MVS joining us in studio today, Marcos Valdez-Scantling. Big thanks to Kyle McCord, Donovan Clingan as well. And each and every one of you, Stu and Samter, thank you too. We'll talk mañana, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace!